This is Jeff Badger, mechanical engineer, writer, researcher, Texan, and now citizen journalist investigator into mass shootings and their aftermath. For the past 2 years, I've been researching the 2016 Pulse Nightclub shooting. I am not in law enforcement, I'm not a trained journalist, but I can analyze basic facts, and for this situation, that's all that's really needed. I became fascinated and obsessed and disturbed by the dishonesty and, yes, outright lies from our public officials after the shooting, from Orlando Police Chief John Mina, and from our Department of Justice. I believe that such incredible fabrications only happened in the old East Germany, Venezuela, China, not in the United States of America. I was naive. I put together a 5-part video series explaining what happened during the Pulse shooting and then what officials said happened afterwards. It's probably longer than it should be, but to paraphrase Mark Twain, I didn't have time to make it short. But it is a thorough record backed by the evidence. Body camera video, surveillance video, and internal Orlando PD reports that Mina and public officials refused to release for years. But now we have some of it, and it's enough to give us an accurate picture of what happened that night and a clear picture of the ongoing lies from public officials. In part 1, I describe what actually happened that night. A timeline is given on the webpage. In short, a gunman entered a nightclub in Orlando and started shooting. 1, 2, and eventually 8 officers took cover outside the building while the gunman kept firing for 8 minutes and 189 AR-15 rounds inside the building. If you know anything about the post-Columbine protocols, quote, run towards gunfire, quote, stop the killing, then stop the dying, quote, every second is a life, you'll know that 8 minutes is an eternity in an active shooter situation. An officer, while taking cover behind his vehicle on the street, took shots into the building and then stayed outside. Inside the building, the gunman kept shooting. More and more officers arrived, taking cover outside the building, calling for more and more backup. The gunman kept shooting. The gunman eventually stopped firing. Why? Because his AR-15 jammed. The officials still didn't enter the building. 2.5 minutes later, another burst of gunfire. 31 rounds from inside the bathroom from the gunman's 9mm handgun. Officers finally entered the building. They heard gunfire again. 5 rounds inside the bathroom. They moved toward it, but they didn't enter the bathroom. The gunman stopped shooting. They didn't enter the bathroom to stop the dying. 5 minutes later, 2 officers saw a person creeping out of the bathroom. They fired at him. It was a civilian. Shot injured hostages inside the bathroom started calling 911 begging for help. Officers didn't enter to stop the dying. 3 hours later, officers breached the outside wall. The gunman started shooting hostages. From outside the building, 13 officers fired 172 rounds into the building and killed the gunman. 49 dead, 14 inside those bathrooms who bled out during the 3-hour wait. Officers did not follow protocols, not even close. What did Orlando Police Chief John Mina immediately tell the public and the media? Mina said that his officers entered the building quickly and immediately. 8 minutes is not immediately when responding to an active shooter. That an officer, quote, exchanged gunfire with the gunman. That never happened. The gunman did not fire at officers. Mina said that his officers, quote, chased the gunman through the building. That's not true. Mina said that they, quote, forced the gunman to stop shooting. That's not true. His AR-15 jammed. Mina said that they, quote, chased him into the bathroom. That's not true. He was already in the bathroom when they finally entered the building. Mina said that there was another gunfight with the gunman. That's not true. Those shots were at a civilian, and the gunman did not fire at officers. Mina said that during the 3-hour wait, the gunman had his AR-15 trained on the door, waiting for officers. That's also not true. His AR-15 had jammed, and he spent time Googling how to unjam it. And that's just a few of the lies. I talk about them in part 2. And of course, Mina released no body camera video or surveillance video. Orlando Police Chief John Mina told us and the families of the victims that his officer responded quickly, that they ran towards gunfire, that they, quote, acted very heroically and courageously, that they were heroes, that they showed courage and bravery, that they saved many, many lives. Who did Mina's officers save? The people who survived those 8 minutes and 189 AR-15 rounds. Every single round fired while one and then several officers were outside the building. Then, with the gunman inside the building, officers entered the building and, quote, rescued the survivors of that 189 round barrage. My goal is not to condemn these officers. In my research, I've learned that officers often perform poorly in active shooter situations. We give them 2 days of training, and then, if things get tactically difficult, we expect them to be Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Chuck Norris, Rambo, Super Cop. They're not. They're average American cops. My goal is simply to tell the truth about what happened and about Mina's and the DOJ's lies. The families of the murdered deserve the truth. Moreover, we can handle the truth. You start with the truth and you work from there. That's how society gets better. That's how our police officers get better. But when everybody gets a trophy, when everybody is a hero, nobody gets better. And that's what happened after Pulse. Every officer received a trophy. Those first officers who arrived and took cover outside the building, listening to gunfire for 8 minutes and 189 AR-15 rounds, Mina held an awards ceremony where he praised their bravery and heroism and gave them all medals of valor. Then he launched a political career as the hero commander of Pulse. He now appears on CNN and Fox News, giving his opinion on law enforcement issues. Celebrity cop. It gets worse. Mina asked the Department of Justice, the DOJ, to do a review of the police response to Pulse. What did the DOJ say? That officers showed, quote, bravery, strength, and professionalism, that they, quote, performed with great heroism and skill, that officers followed, quote, best practices. It was a glowing, cheerleading, and dishonest report. The DOJ lied about some things, but more often, they committed lies of omission. They just left stuff out. They left out important events. They spun a narrative. And what did the DOJ report say about John Mina? What a fabulous leader he was, over and over. Gushing praise. I described this in part 3. But then it gets uglier. In the report on Pulse, the DOJ encourages officials after a shooting to, quote, frame the narrative and then, quote, control the narrative, even though the narrative they upheld in their report was false. They praised John Mina for how he handled the media. That's part 4. And then it gets sad, perhaps tragic. I'm from Uvalde, Texas, where in 2022 we had a school shooting that was similar to the second half of Pulse. Uvalde officers at least entered the building during gunfire. They didn't wait it out. But then they faced a gunman shooting, then no longer shooting, inside a room with shot, injured people who were bleeding out. Just like at Pulse. Nobody in Uvalde wanted to enter that room and face down that AR-15. Just like at Pulse. They gave similar reasons. It was a hostage barricade. It was a suicide mission. We could have used some lessons learned from the DOJ's report on Pulse in order to not have a repeat of Pulse. Why didn't officers enter at Pulse? Why didn't officers enter at Uvalde? How do we fix that? But we never got any lessons learned from Pulse because according to the DOJ, Pulse was a fabulous success. Great heroism. In Uvalde, we ended up with a repeat of Pulse. Officers waiting 73 minutes. Not 3 hours, but not acceptable. 2 failed police responses. No real lessons learned from the DOJ. And then it gets downright bizarre. For their review of Uvalde, who did the DOJ hire as an expert to evaluate the Uvalde police response? John Mina, the hero of the Pulse shooting. whose officers, crazy as it sounds, did worse than Uvalde officers. I explore all this in part 5. The whole thing is a fascinating, ugly mess of contradictions, official lies, a concocted hero narrative, self-promotion, and worst of all, missed opportunities to improve. Officers failed to follow protocols. Then they all received participation trophies and were called heroes. Nobody improved, and the families of the victims were left with lies about what happened when their loved one was murdered. I explore all this in these videos. I hope you'll watch them. Yes, they're long, but there needs to be a record. These videos are part of that record. Thank you. I welcome your comments and criticism. I welcome civil discussion.